Krishna Krishna Jamuna Tiro Banachari Jamuna Tiro Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiro Banachari Yamuna Tiro Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Amaswa Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Sattva Srimad Bhagavatam Saraswati Goswami Bhagavad Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Khund Radha Khund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai की जाए जमुना माई की जाए गुरु द्वारका धाम की जाए स्वामी तो भक्तविंद की जाए ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असम्बली ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द असम्बली थैंक यू वेरी मच
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our revered speaker for today, His Grace Mahatma Prabhu, a direct disciple of Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. And all glories to the Sangha Vaishnava devotees. Devotees, we are very grateful to have your association here today. And Prabhuji, we're very grateful you could begin the week with us.
Thank you.
In Africa, there are lots of superstitions in Africa. One of such superstitions is that if you meet a saintly person in the morning, it's a sign that that whole day is going to be auspicious. And if you also meet someone you love so much, the first thing in the morning, your day is going to be auspicious. And we have both with you today. So the whole week is going to be auspicious, if not the whole month, the whole year. So we're very grateful to have your association. And without further ado, we may put the verse on the screen and then you take it over from here.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine.
Nirvisesha Shunyabadi Paschatya Dasatarini. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Bancha Kalpa Tarubhya Sindhuvyevacha. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Panketi Girim Yakrapa Tamaham Vande Siguru Dinatarinam. One who is blind, one who cannot speak, one who cannot walk, by the mercy of the Guru can speak poetry, can climb mountains, see stars in the sky. That's a combination of two verses. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 9, Text 7, 8, and 9, and each have a purport. So, should we read the Sanskrit to all, or just read the Sanskrit to this? I mean, I can read the Sanskrit, but responsively, maybe we do this verse responsively. And most of you won't want to chant it because it looks difficult, doesn't it? Anyway, we'll do this, we'll chant, I will chant and you'll respond. Daivena te hatta diyo bhavata prasangat.
Daivena hata hitiyo bhagavata prasangat.
Sarva shubho pashamanad vimukhendriyaye.
Sarva shubho pashamanat vimukhendriyaye.
Kurvanti kamasu kalesha lavayadhina.
Kurvanti kama shukalesha lavayadina.
Lobha vibhuta manaso kushalani shatsvat.
Lobha vibhuta manasho kushalani shaswat.
Daivena te hatatiyo bhavata prasangat.
Daivena te hatatiyo bhavata prasangat.
Sarva shubho pashamanad vimukhendriyaye.
Sarva shubho
Shubho
pashamanat.
Kurvanti kama shukalesha lavayadina.
Kurvanti
kama sukalesha lavayadinam.
Lobha vibhuta manaso kushalani shashvat.
Lova vibhuta manaso
kushalani shashvat. One more time. I think the best thing is you all mute yourself, and then you can all respond, and I will chant it in my head, so I'll give you enough time to respond. Otherwise, it's confusing. Daivena te hatadiyo bhavata prasangat. Daivena te
hatadiyo bhavata prasangat.
Talia, can you mute yourself?
Okay.
Sarva shubho pashamanad vumukhendiyaye. Sarva shubho pashamanad vimukhendriyaye. Kurvanti kama shukalesha lavayadina. Kurvanti kama shukalesha lavayadina. Lobha vibhuta manaso kushalani shashvat. Lobha vibhuta manaso kushalani shashvat. Word meanings. Daivena, by fate of misfortune. Te, they. Hata dhiyaha, bereft of memory. Bhavataha, of you. Prasangat, from the topics. I'm giving you time to repeat if you want. Sarva, all. Ashubha, inauspicious. Upashamanat, curbing down. Vimukha, turned against. Indriyaha, senses. Ye, those. Kurvanti, act. Kama, sense gratification. Sukha, happiness. Lesha, brief. Lavaya, for a moment only. Dinaha, poor fellows. Loba abhibhuta, overwhelmed by greed. Manasaha, of one whose mind. Akushalani, inauspicious activities. Sashvat, always. Translation. O my Lord, persons who are bereft of the all-auspicious performance of chanting and hearing about your transcendental activities are certainly unfortunate and are also bereft of good sense. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. Purport. The next question is why people are against such auspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of material existence. The only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of natural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. The Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons and, in a missionary spirit, try to persuade them into the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendence. This verse is explaining that conditioned souls have no hope of ever becoming free from material existence, have no hope of understanding properly who they are in their relationship with Krishna because of offensive activities, which are defined as activities performed for sense gratification. And it's interesting that they're defined as offensive because all sense gratification is meant for Krishna. And so if we engage in sense gratification, which we're all very good at because we have lots of practice, then that sense gratification is actually meant for Krishna, and that's offensive. Just like if you come to my house, you walk in and you eat everything in the refrigerator. Well, that was meant for me. It wasn't meant for you. I mean, I could offer it to you. But if I didn't offer it to you and you took it all, that's offensive. And therefore it's sinful because you're stealing. Yes? Can you go back to the purport that we're on? 7. So we can look at it while I'm talking. Thank you. So, didn't you find that interesting? That Prabhupada is saying sense gratification is offensive? Like, most people, even devotees, would think, well, it's just sense gratification. Why would that be offensive? I'm just having a good time. Because it's for Krishna. Because you've taken something from Krishna. And so, if we are offensive to Krishna, how are we ever going to become Krishna conscious? Obviously not. So this verse is saying, but pure devotee comes And what does he do? He convinces us that what you're doing is wrong. But not only does he convince us, he prays to Krishna to help us. And he bestows his blessings on us so that we can understand what he's saying. Because ultimately, without the mercy of a pure devotee, how can you understand what they're saying? It'll just be words going in your head, but it won't hit your heart. So the last point Prabhupada makes is, therefore, because of this reality that the conditioned soul cannot liberate themselves, and they can only be liberated by the devotees, and the devotees know that, and we don't think we have any special qualification, but we're carrying the medicine. I didn't develop the medicine. I didn't manufacture the medicine. I was given a medicine to give out. And so we just feel obligated to give out the medicine. And therefore, and the other thing is, whenever you talk about devotees and giving Krishna consciousness to others, always this word compassion comes up. And one of the reasons a devotee is compassionate, as you probably have experienced, is because we've been relieved from suffering. And so the people that we're talking to, we know exactly what they're going through. We know we've lived that life. So we know, and we've lived the life of a devotee, and we know the difference. And so as we become Krishna conscious and relish Krishna consciousness, compassion becomes deeper, because as we become happier, we feel sadder that people don't have it. Just like, let's say, you bought a car, you bought a Toyota, and you're so happy with this Toyota, you've had it 300,000 miles, and it's like never broken down. And it's quiet, you love the seats are comfortable, etc., etc. And your friend bought some other like new car that just, was made in Estonia or something, and it was really cheap. And he thought, I'll get that car. And that car's always breaking down, and he's always having trouble. And it's always in the repair shop, and he's always spending money. So in a sense, the more you like your car, the more you feel sad that he doesn't have your car. Right? Isn't it? You feel sad that he's driving this car. No offense to Estonians. I don't even think they make cars. But they did make a car once in Czechoslovakia. Esther, you remember that? I don't know if they still make it. It looked like someone built the car themselves in their backyard. It was really simple. I forget the name of it, but it didn't really make it in America. I think it was kind of like a bicycle with a motor and a little body or something. But anyway, have you ever had that experience where you buy something and someone else buys something and they pay the same price, but they got the wrong brand and theirs is problematic? You feel bad for them. You should, and the more you like your product, the more you use it, the more you benefit from it, the more you feel sorry for them that they don't have the same experience with theirs. So that's the idea. So that's how, so as, someone might say, well, I'm relishing Krishna consciousness. It seems like I don't care about anybody. It doesn't actually work that way, because the more you relish it, and naturally, the more you want to give it, because the more you see, it's like you're realizing they're suffering even more, in a sense, because you're so happy in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so I guess we can go to the next verse, and I will just chant the next verse myself in the interest of time. This is text 8, chapter 9, third canto. Shutrit tridatubir imamoho adhyamanaha shito varashar itaritarascha kamag nina chutarusha shishurparena shampashito mana urukrama sidattame. Prabhupada says the word Sanskrit means precise. And so to compose Sanskrit, everything has to be precise. And these are just prayers they're just saying. For us, we have to write the prayer, and like Grammarly check it and ask AI, can you make it better? And this and that. And they're just like, say it, So people say, AI is way more intelligent than we are. I don't know if it's way more intelligent than people used to be. Because I don't think AI can just pop out beautiful Sanskrit. If you see the poems AI writes, it's like it's okay. But it's like, no, I don't think so. So that's just English. What to speak of Sanskrit? So learn Sanskrit and AI will never beat you. So let's just go to the translation. O great actor, my lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable, I can never say that, indefatigable, why can't I say that word? Indefatigable anger. Indefatigable, that means anger is constant. You can never completely subdue it. I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them. So, purport. A pure devotee of the Lord like Brahma and persons in his disciplic succession are always unhappy to see the perplexities of the conditioned souls who are suffering the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, which pertain to the body and mind, to the disturbances of material nature, and to many other such material disadvantages. Not knowing adequate measures for relieving such difficulties, suffering persons sometimes pose themselves as leaders of the people, and the unfortunate followers are put into further disadvantages under such so-called leadership. This is like a blind man's leading another blind man to fall into a ditch. Therefore, unless the pure devotees of the Lord take pity on them and teach them the right path, their lives are hopeless failures. The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take the responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic sense enjoyers are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma. Wow. So now I see why you put these verses together, because the theme is similar. And you thought I would read all three and then speak on all three, right? Anyway, it's easier for me to speak as I read and then. So, can you go back up? I want to back to the verse. Yeah. So, who is speaking? Who is speaking here? I didn't look back far enough to see who. These are prayers of the demigods. Is that it?
Lord Brahma.
Lord Brahma speaking. Okay. So I should have paid attention to the purport. It said that, right? Yeah. So yeah. So here we have an exhibition of what it looks like to be compassionate. And of course, Lord Brahma, he's on another planet, so it really looks bad down here, because what he's describing is reduced, or either much of what he's describing is different on his planet. It's not as painful. So he's looking at people, of course, everywhere in the universe it's painful. Even on the heavenly planets, you still have anger and sexual desire. And so Brahma is saying, outside of us, the weather, it's hot, it's cold, we get sick. Inside of us, there's hunger, there's thirst, there's anger, sexual desire. Have you ever like eaten a meal and 6 hours later you're hungry again, or maybe a few hours later you get hungry and you're thinking, oh no, I have to cook. This is a botheration. You look in the refrigerator, there's nothing there. Oh no, I have to go shopping. You look in your sink, there's pots and dishes from the last 12 years still there. And you think, I wish I didn't have to eat, because I could save a lot of money and time. And or have you ever been in a situation where you're working on something and you want to keep working on it, but you're too hungry. You have to stop and eat, and you're thinking, wish I weren't hungry because I just want to work on this. You ever been in that situation? Especially for me, it's the cooking part. It's like, wow, I think if I didn't have to eat, I wouldn't have to cook. I wouldn't have to eat. And you might be thinking, but I love to eat. How could you not want to eat? Yeah, well, all eating is doing is just putting out it's just the pain in the stomach. But if you don't have the pain, then you know, it's like, fine, you don't need to eat. You ever get sick and you're not hungry and people say, you're so skinny, you should eat. And I'm not hungry, I don't feel like it. So, and what to speak of sexual desire? Like sometimes we become devotees and we chant really good rounds, and after we finish our really good rounds, we think, okay, that's it. I am now free of all desire, no lust, no this, no that. And all of a sudden, lust comes coming through the back door, and you're thinking, what? I chanted good rounds. What's going on? This is not fair. I want my money back. It's because you have a body, and that's what the body does. And sometimes devotees say, when is my sex desire going to go away? And I say, when you're in the grave, then yeah, you'll be okay then. Before that, I'm not sure. because of course it reduces when you get older. Just your energy, when you get older, your body produces less of those hormones that give you that sexual energy and desire and just general strength. But you probably all heard the story, or you've heard Prabhupada say that the sex desire doesn't go away, even old age. Even a man's in his old age and he's dying, he's still thinking about it. So I always think like, well, if you don't give it up now, why would you give it up at the end of your life? Like they say, if you're not happy now, if you make $1 million, you still won't be happy. So, you know, it's kind of like if you've been a devotee like most of your life and you're still like haven't given up that desire, what makes you think you'd give it up, you know, when you're 85? It's like, you're not giving it up when you're 55. Who's to say you'll give it up when you're 85? You might be forced to give it up physically. But Prabhupada's point was that even this story was even this man, and he was in the hospital dying. I think he was dying. Anyway, he was an old man in the hospital. And his friend came and visited him, and he came with his daughter, and the man immediately looked at his daughter because I guess she was very attractive. So, Hare Krishna. All I can say to that is, Hare Krishna. You ever like hear some bad news and you just say, Hare Krishna? Well, to what I just said, I'm going to say, Hare Krishna. That's bad news, isn't it? Everybody in the audience is crying now. They're Googling how to kill myself. And yeah, so Brahma's looking at this and going, look at material existence. You think you're happy, and you've got this like, all these desires just pushing you all the time. They don't give you any rest. And then when the winter comes, it's like freezing, the wind blows in your face, and it's just painful. And then finally the summer comes, and it's too hot, and your air conditioning breaks, if you even have it. And if you don't get hit from the front, you get hit from the back. So, but the point of this, if Brahma is not just saying this to just like say, too bad, you chose this, you wanted to take birth, too bad. He's not saying it like that. He's saying, look, this is bad. And look at how they're suffering. So when he's seeing people, he's feeling their pain. That's what compassion means. You feel pain. You feel the pain of another person. So he's feeling it. And so he's pointing all these things out, but he's actually feeling those things, at least in his heart, how horrible this is. You know, when you're driving down the road and you see an accident, how do you feel? You feel sorry for those people, don't you? Of course, if you're Bhakta Burfi, you're like, they deserve it. They're just mega karmi meat eaters. You know. But if you're a normal, compassionate devotee, You think, oh, this is bad, isn't it? Don't you feel like that? You think, oh, well, it's really bad, because you know how you would feel if you were in that car accident, and maybe they're injured, and if they're not injured, their car is, and whatever they were on their way to do, they can't do now. Now their car is going to be in the shop, and it's cost money, and then it's the insurance, and they have to argue whose fault it was. So you feel bad, and that's what Brahma's doing here. He's just looking at these happy people who are happily enjoying. They're happily enjoying eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and they think they're enjoying, but they can't get rid of that desire. And then the more they do it, the more they want to do it. So it's like this insatiable desire is driving them crazy because they can't find happiness doing it, and they do it over and over again. Have you ever done something over and over and over again so much that you got sick of it? So they're doing it over and over and over again till they get sick of it. And then what do? They just get divorced and find another partner to do it over and over again because they think it's going to be new and different. So Brahma's looking at this and going, this is horrible. I feel so bad for them. I want to help them. And so that's how we should be feeling when we see people. Like, look at their lives. When Prabhupada would look at non-devotees and, what their life was like, and he would say, oh, their life is so bad. They're working so hard. They're suffering so much. He would feel just like this. He would say things like this. Okay, we can go. Can you just go to the purport for a second so I can remember what's there? Yeah. Yeah, so Prabhupada's making the same point that he made in the last verse, that he's adding this point that the leaders of society, they cannot relieve people of their suffering, but only the devotees can. And my dear devotees, if we don't do it, who's going to do it? Look in the mirror and tell yourself every morning, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? So that's the idea. Okay, we go to the next verse. This is verse number 9. Javat pritaktam idamatmana indriyartha mayabalam bhagavato jana isha pashyat tavan samsritir aso pratishankrameta vyarthapi dukha nibaham bahati kriyartha. O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet, as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy. Yeah, you know that external energy? That damn external energy. You know about it, right? It's like heavy. It doesn't leave you alone. Have you ever been driving and you stopped paying attention for a minute and you ended up in the other lane, the lane next to you, or on top of a truck or underneath a truck or something? You ever had that experience? So Maya's like that. You take your eye off the road, all of a sudden you're in Maya. You ever had that one? Like, what happened? I was chanting my rounds a minute ago, and now I'm dreaming about, becoming Lord Brahma. You took your eye off the road. And so Maya's like, she's like, hey, look over here, look over here. She's waiting for you. So that's the beauty of staying in Krishna consciousness, because as you mature in bhakti, your taste for Krishna becomes strong enough that Maya's like, I've given up on you. You're no fun. I can't trick you anymore. You know all my tricks. I've used them all on you. It's like I can't fight you. It's like the 14,000 boxing match with you, and you know all my moves, and you move out of the way. So that will happen if you stay in Krishna consciousness. So that's good news. So let's read the purport. The whole trouble of the living entity in material existence is that he has an independent conception of life. He's always dependent on the rules of the Supreme Lord in both the conditioned and liberated states. But by the influence of the external energy, the conditioned soul thinks himself independent of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead. His constitutional position is to dovetail himself with the desire of the supreme will. But as long as he does not do so, he is sure to drag on in the shackles of material bondage, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Text 55, Prajahati yada kaman sarvaparta manogatan. He has to give up all sorts of plans manufactured by mental concoction. The living entity has to dovetail himself with the supreme will. That will help him to get out of the entanglement of material existence. Hare Krishna. Gauranga Nityananda. So this verse is saying that all these miseries that Lord Brahma is describing, they actually don't exist for the soul. They exist for the body, but they don't even exist for the body if you realize you're the soul. Then it's not going to bother you or influence you. So what this verse is saying, when we think about sense gratification, then automatically that just binds us to the body, helps us. It causes us to identify with the body. When you serve Krishna, you identify with the soul because the soul is a servant of Krishna. So when you identify with the body, then what do? You do what bodies do. You look for sense gratification. You know how Prabhupada sometimes says, well, we're like animals, says like we're like animals. Why? Because what are we doing? I mean, it's embarrassing to say this. And Prabhupada said it so many times. The animals eat, sleep, mate, and defend. You sleep, you eat, sleep, mate, and defend. You just do it in a more polished way. I mean, that's a heavy statement if you think about it. Because basically, you're telling people, you're just a dog. Excuse me, sir, I want you to know, you're a dog. Wow, how dare you say that? Because all you're concerned about is what a dog's concerned about. Where's food? Where's sex? Where's a place to sleep? And when I see another dog coming in my turf, I bark. Get out. Custom. The dogs are like, they make good customs officers. Get out of my country. You don't belong here. That's how Prabhupada felt when he would go through immigration. He's like, these are dogs barking at me. Everything belongs to Krishna. Why won't they let me in their country? It doesn't belong to you. But anyway, I think it's a good reflection for us because, I mean, if you're living as a devotee, then your life is not dedicated to eating, sleeping, and mating, defending. Your life is dedicated to controlling those things, right? Sometimes we have to get along with devotees and it's difficult and we just do it because we don't want to give into our defending propensity. And we see a person who's very beautiful, opposite sex, and we just say, I've given that up, I'm not a dog. I have my own wife, I have my own husband, or I'm brahmachari. That's it. So that's how you prevent yourself from being a dog. How much are you going to sleep? What I need. How much are you going to eat? What I need. A dog would kill himself. Wouldn't a dog kill himself if you just let them eat whatever they wanted? Wouldn't they eat themselves to death? Does anybody know? Because, yeah, it's true. I think it's true, right? Because you don't just fill a dog bowl up like, you have a certain ration, right? This is how much they should eat. And they're always hungry because when you're eating, they still want to eat your stuff. So, yeah, it's interesting. I think it's very powerful to ask yourself, what's the difference between me and a dog? It's embarrassing. Because sometimes, some days in our life, there's not a whole lot of difference. We were fighting with everybody, we were overeating, we were oversleeping, and we're looking at all the members of the opposite sex with lustful eyes. Okay, so what's the difference? I look different, yeah, that's about it. But if we're devotees, there should be a big difference, right? And that's why Prabhupada was so heavy. He's like, how can these people help the world? How can they solve the world's problems? Anyway, Krishna consciousness is heavy. Sometimes it's too heavy to broadcast publicly. We would offend people. But it's philosophy. And sometimes it's heavy, and sometimes we need to just be hit in the head with something heavy. Have you ever been like, you ever heard really heavy preaching? It was almost like you want to strangle the speaker. You gotta stop saying that, you know? But you leave the class and you realize, I actually needed to hear that. That was actually good for me. The reason I was so resistant is because he was talking about me in such heavy terms, and I really needed to hear it, and I didn't want to, because it's, you ever have something, hear something, it's so true, you fight it, you scream at it, you get out a gun and shoot it. Have you ever had that experience? It's like so true about me, I can't tolerate hearing it, so I want to shoot the speaker. How dare you say that? That's offensive. But sometimes the sadhus speak that way. And that's Prabhupada, he said that all the time. He said, one time Prabhupada said, you are running on four wheels. You have these nice cars, especially today, the cars are much nicer than when Prabhupada was with us. But still they were nice. When Prabhupada came to America, the only car they had in India was an ambassador. And the ambassador was kind of like a tank with wheels. It wasn't really I wouldn't say it's a comfortable car. No, I would say it's not a comfortable car. It's like cars in the 40s. That's what it looked like, a 1942 something, and it drove like one. So and the streets and the roads in India, they're full of potholes, like everywhere in those days, right? If they're not potholes, it's just the roads were not like silk. So when Prabhupada came to America, he said, your roads are like silk. It was like he'd never seen roads like that. And the cars were very comfortable, and they would often get Prabhupada limousines, so you could imagine. And so Prabhupada would get in the car and he would say, so you're driving on four wheels and the dog is running on four legs. What's the difference? You're running in style. He's maybe running on the ground. But what are you running for? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. What's the difference? You're doing it in style, but you're doing the same thing. It's like you do a murder, but it was like an amazingly intelligent murder, and the police didn't catch you. You did it in style. You never got caught. Does that reduce the offense of the murder? Of course not. So something like that. So Prabhupada was heavy, and I think it's good for us, and I think we needed to hear that. Sobering. Yeah. Then in this last purport, Prabhupada's talking about something he hasn't talked about yet, which is independence, that we think we're independent. And then Prabhupada makes this point, and he's made it before. It's just such a nice point. He said, you are never independent. Even when you're Krishna conscious, you are controlled. You're just controlled by the spiritual energy. So hey, this is the bad news. If you want to be independent, I have some very bad news for you. You will never be independent. Even when you go back to Godhead, you're thinking, I've misused my independence. Now I'll go back to Godhead. I will use my independence properly, and then I'll be independent. No, you'll be under the control of Yogamaya. No independence. So we have a choice. You can be under the control of Mahamaya or Yogamaya, but we'll always be under control. That's Prabhupada's point. And then Prabhupada quotes this verse in the Gita, Prajahati yada kaman, sarvaparta manogatan. When you give up all When you give up all material desires, then you're liberated. Yeah. That's such a paradox, isn't it? Like, everybody wants a million things, and they think when they get them, they'll be happy. And Krishna says, when you give them all up, you'll be happy. Like, whoa, what? Huh? How does that work? No one told me that. Everyone told me the more I get, the happier I'll be. And Krishna's saying, the more you give up, the happier you'll be. Like, what's that? Pujahati yadakaman sarvaparta manogatan. All these things your mind is hankering for. You know, people, they say, I want peace. Well, hello, everyone. Peace means you don't want anything, at least, or you don't want anything for yourself. You only want for Krishna. That's what peace means. So you want peace, like, and they're thinking, well, when I get everything, I'll be peaceful. And Krishna's saying, when you don't want anything, you'll be peaceful. And the more you get, the more you want. It's like everyone thinks, if I get more, then I'll be pacified. It's like eating. You ever eat a sweet, like a really good sweet? Does that one sweet pacify you? Makes you want to eat another one and another one until you're so sick you can't eat anymore. So it's like that. So Krishna is saying, you want to be peaceful? Yeah, that's fine, but you don't know how. You have to become free from desire. Prajahati yadaka sarva partamano. Give it up. Then you'll become peaceful. Otherwise, impossible. You have everything. You got the big house, the big car, cars, you got the family, you got the fame, you got the bank balance, you got the good looks, the big muscles, the nice body. You got it all. Smart, talented. And as long as you want more, you're not peaceful. It's just the way it works. And then you become a sadhu. Prajahati yada kaman. You give it all up. You become a sadhu. And then you become peaceful. So I'm going to Vrindavan. I've given up everything except my bead bag and my dhoti. I'm going. I'm on my way. And like, you remember when you became a devotee and you gave up everything and moved in the temple? It was like, It's like drinking a lemonade on a hot day, wasn't it? Yeah, hits the spot. I gave up everything and hits the spot. Yesterday, I had an amazing experience. You want to hear about it? We have well, you're going to hear about it even if you don't want to, so sorry for that. So, you're not supposed to say when you speak, don't say just pause. So yesterday, I was cleaning out my storage area on my property. It's 10 feet wide, 20 feet long. So that's 200 square feet. You can store a lot of junk in there. And the longer you live in a house, we've been here 20 years, the more junk you can store. And the cheaper the junk gets in China, the more you buy, because it's like, it's so cheap, might as well just buy it. You know, when I grew up, you could, it was not cheap. If you're going to buy something, you'd think about it, you'd save for months, and then you buy it. Now you don't have to think about it, because what costs $100 now is $14.99, and the special deal is half price if you buy it right now. So it's easy to accumulate junk. So we got rid of some stuff a few weeks ago, but it wasn't enough. And a devotee was visiting me, and when he came, I was cleaning out the storage area, and he goes, "Can I help you?" I was like, "Okay." So I kind of became like a hurricane in cleaning, and I stayed up, and then I worked on that for like an hour, and then we had a program, and then I came back at 5:30, and I worked on it till 10 o'clock at night. And if you look outside my house, you'll find a lot of stuff out there. If you want to get it, just fly over. We're going to throw it out tomorrow. You got one day to get here. So there's lots of stuff that we don't need, because as you go through life, you need certain things, but then you grow out of them, or you had a business, you don't need it, or you're working on a project, or the technology changes. We got all these wires and cables that don't plug into anything, because that was 90s technology, right? And like all your old cassettes, where do you put your cassette when you drive your car? You have to buy a 1980 car to have a cassette player, right? Even a CD player, what are you going to do with your CDs? It's all, just a thumb drive. It's all not even a thumb drive, it's on your phone. Throwing away, throwing away, throwing away. Haribo. Throwing away, throwing away. Sadhvi, who is that? Your daughter, your friend, your neighbor? Wow. Oh, she's selling books. Fantastic. She's on Sankirtan. Thank you. Ecstatic. In Sweden. She's in Sweden. So, I just want to say, I just felt so good having thrown all that stuff out. I was like, last night at 10 o'clock, I could not go to sleep. I went to sleep at 12:30. I was like, ah, ah. So the moral of this class is go throw your stuff away. You're going to feel good. Go in your storage area. Go in your closet. The devotee came over last month, and he was exactly my size. His shoe size, his shirt size, his pant size, exactly mine. I said, finally, I can get rid of my stuff. Because 90% of what I own, people in clothes, were given to me. And all my shoes, I think, except one pair, were given to me. And I just was giving him stuff. This shirt, that shirt, take this, take that. Feels so good to get rid of stuff. And it also feels good to get rid of lust, anger, greed, envy, and so forth. But you can start with getting rid of the grosser things before you get rid of the subtle. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. It was a very liberating experience to get rid of stuff you don't need. You know all that stuff that's been sitting around since 1982, and you're like, maybe I'll use it tomorrow, and you've been saying that for the last 45 years, and you never use it. Yeah. You can throw that away. I mean, or give it away. Somebody could use it, right? Hare Krishna. Okay. I don't know why we're talking about giving away. Oh yeah, that was because desire, I want more, I want more, I want more. That make me happy. And we say, no, give away more, you'll be happy, not get more. Well, if you, at one time, Prabhupada said, I have this watch. This is Krishna's watch, but I'm using it. And if you try to get it from me, I won't give it to you because I'm using it for Krishna. So that's a different mentality, you know. You want nice things. One time, the microphone wasn't working. Prabhupada was giving a lecture. I don't know if it was a microphone or the cable or the amplifier or the speakers. And anyway, they fixed it. It probably was just a loose connection somewhere. And Prabhupada said, there is a saying, maybe Bengal, when you buy something, buy the best. So because you buy the best, it works. So yeah, we buy good things for service, and we're attached to our service. We're not attached to the things. We're attached to the things because we can use them in the service, and we can do things to please Krishna. Right? Yes? Good. Okay. That's all I wanted to say. My famous last words. That's all I wanted to say, and I said it. And now it's time for you to make your comments and or ask questions.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. As always, you always speak in such a way that everybody can relate to what you're sharing because everybody experiences it.
Yeah, maybe I would have been a comedian if I wasn't.
Talking about junk, I believe everybody has so much.
It's all China's fault. We have junk.
And I'm trying to see how I can even give up the gross ones before I attempt to giving up the.
Look at all those books you have.
So I think we have a question from Sarvatma Prabhu, who is now called a question mark. So
Okay.
Sarvatma Prabhu, please, you may unmute, and if possible, you may turn on your camera, please.
You gave me away.
Hey, this
I
is my
wanted to-
brother. We're the Atma brothers.
I wanted to remain anonymous and speak with a Russian accent.
Can we hear your Russian accent when you ask the question?
Yes, Maharaj, please. Why you are so negative? You're extremely negative, yet you claim to be happy. How is that possible?
You know, it's like you have a thorn in your foot and you pull that thorn out and you feel better. So, there's so many negative things in our life. If you just pull them out, you'll be better. You know, it's funny because so many teachers are like very optimistic, but it's like, you know, you're driving off a cliff. Sarvama, you're driving off the cliff, watch out. And you say, don't be pessimistic. You should be optimistic. You know, it's like, what's the point? You're all going to die optimistically. So, you know.
Well, I heard someone that was pushed off a skyscraper, and when he was going by the 5th floor, he said, "So far, so good." That's optimism.
Hare Krishna. Well, Sarvatma is a comedian, so I'm going to have to tell a joke now. You know, I love to go outdoors because it's a lot easier than going out windows.
Very nice.
So, yeah, sometimes we exchange jokes.
So it's not, but it seems like I heard this criticism before when devotees speak.
Yeah.
Of course, Prabhupada said, if you don't realize that the material world is a place of misery, it's very difficult to get the option of practicing spiritual life. But why do we have to go via negativa? You know, always is
Yeah. We definitely shouldn't do it always because then we'll attract a lot of negative people. All the negative people will like it. But you know that story Prabhupada tells, or it's maybe a fable. This man is on the top of his house, you know, in India or maybe in Nigeria also. The roofs are flat, and in many countries they're like this. They're triangular. So he's on the roof, and he's flying his kite, and there's no railing on the roof, so he's just looking up, and he's about to walk off, and his friend is saying, watch. Don't bother me, you're too negative. Whoop. So that was Prabhupada's point, you know, it's like you have to warn people. But obviously, there's limitation. And we can really turn people away. I think also, it's just my opinion, I think devotees who are by nature negative like talking about negative things. And devotees who are by nature positive like talking about positive things. Have you noticed that, Sarvatma?
I have.
So, you know, if you're negative, it's like, you're in the right place, you know, because you can quote 100 negative verses and you could feed your negativity. But obviously, it doesn't help everybody. But at the same time, it's like if you don't tell him, yeah, maybe you have to tell him in a nice way and just like run in front of him and give him a hug and say, you're about to walk off the roof. So as you know, there are ways to be negative without being negative, especially when you're talking to someone who realizes these things. Then it's like you don't have to say much because they already realize it. But if you're too positive and don't explain reality, then you've let people down also. So it's really an art. And you know, people talk about like strategy, preaching styles, and you know, debate. There's no debate. Just look at who wins. You know, it's like the person who wins. Look at what he does. You know, because you can't say this works unless it actually does. So it's interesting, though. I mean, it's something to consider that if we're a little dysfunctional in our preaching, it's going to resonate with dysfunctional people, and you'll fill your temple up with a bunch of dysfunctional people you have to manage. And when you start preaching positive, they'll be upset. You attracted me with all this negative stuff. Why are you being positive? I don't like it. Hare Krishna. I mean, maybe I'm overstating it, but we've seen that, haven't we? I mean, at least in a positive sense, if you're well-educated, intellectual, you'll attract similar people. So what do you say, Sarvama?
Maybe that's why we don't have so many people joining.
Could be. Well, there are many spiritual teachers who are very, very positive. What happened to me is I got all the negative after I hung around the devotees a while. I didn't get it in the beginning. So that, brought in with the, what do they say? Reeled in with the sweet sauce. Then given the chilies. There's a saying like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you have to say it, but you have to say it in the right way.
I think also takes an immense amount of determination and an iron will to join and stay in the movement.
Yeah. Yeah. But, after COVID, I think people got that the world is pretty bad. It seemed to be a shift, I've noticed that it's much easier. I mean, I get more buy-in when I say those things. But I can tell you one thing that I did that's really cool. I said, I was doing a seminar for new people. So we had a flip chart and I said, what are the things you don't like about this world? And we wrote them down. There's war, there's animal slaughter, the ecology, the problems with ecology, the political problems. They didn't say old age, death, and disease. I had to remind them. What about, who likes to get old? Raise your hand. Okay. What about disease? So we, whatever they missed, I wrote down. And then I said, okay. Well, we actually put a line down the middle. So on the right side, we're gonna put down, what's our vision of like a perfect world, which is pretty much the opposite of the left side. So like if you could make the world, if God said to you, make the world any way you want, how would you make it? So no war, everyone would love one another, blah, 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 blah. And so you have the right side and the left side, and the left side is the reality, and the right side's the way you want it. And I just go, look at this for a few minutes and let's discuss it, And I thought, I don't want to say the world's miserable because you already said it. I don't have to say it. And now what does it mean? So anyone who's thoughtful will say, oh, this world isn't the way we want it. It's pretty much the opposite of the way we want it. I go, interesting. Didn't Buddha say that? The world is a place of suffering and this and that. Like, yeah. I always quote Buddha because Buddha's cool. And if you say we're suffering, just say, just like Buddha said, the world is suffering. Everyone's like, whoa, cool. Yeah, I like it. Isn't it? So you can say the same thing, but you can quote Buddha and you can get away with it.
I wonder if this is like a progression, like it happened until Lord Chaitanya appeared, that Buddha was famous, then Sankaracharya, and then Lord Chaitanya. So we have to, when
Make
Buddha
more positive.
when Buddha goes out of fashion, the impersonalists will come and be part of our preaching, and then Lord Chaitanya.
Well, the other thing is negative is positive because you're turning people away from something negative, and so naturally they'll go to something positive. So, truly speaking, how is negative negative if negative takes you to positive?
That's above my pay grade. So
you can stay where you are in Pennsylvania, and in January in Pennsylvania it must be pretty cold, or you could fly to Hawaii where it's nice and warm. So if you're going to go to Hawaii in January, the more cold it is where you are, the happier you're going to be to go to Hawaii, because you'll think, I'm getting out of this suffering and I'm going to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. So, yeah. So we're happy to go back to Godhead because things aren't perfect here. The other thing, which I think is the most important thing, is that we would not have a desire for liberation if there wasn't suffering. I mean, that's just a real fact.
Yeah.
And Krishna knows that better than we do, which is why suffering was built into material existence, because he wants us back. And he knew if he didn't, like, why do I need you, Krishna, when I got everything? Isn't it? I mean, like, if I could be happy without Krishna, why would I be a devotee? It's too much trouble.
I usually say that Maya, which we take, like, oh, that's bad thing, is actually our personal trainer. And
yeah, exactly.
Personal trainer doesn't add more and more weight to what we lift, then we don't develop spiritual muscle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to, I would like to allow other devotees to ask questions. I just want to make a correction with your kind permission. And
Please.
And it's not philosophical. So you're
About how much dogs eat? What is it?
No, it's about cars.
Oh, about that Czechoslovakia car?
Czechoslovakia makes a good car.
Yugoslavia.
No, Yugoslavia makes terrible cars, but
It was called the Yugo. The car was called the Yugo.
Yugo, yes.
Okay, tell us about the car.
Skoda, which is a good brand of vehicles, is made in Czechoslovakia. And Estonia does produce cars too.
Oh, really?
Mostly race cars, yeah, but it does even hydrogen power buses and some other cars. So yeah, that's just a tidbit. So
the Yugo, oh, that's interesting. And the Yugo made such a bad car, you can't return it because there's no Yugoslavia to return it to, right?
That is true. Actually, there is a worse car than the Yugo. It's considered the worst car ever made. It's called the Trabant, made in East Germany. And
really?
yeah, it was already imperfect from the factory. You would slam the door and still wouldn't close. And they said that I think Parthasarathi Maharaj spoke about a similar car that was made in Ukraine, the Zaporozhet. He said the rear defroster, rear defrost on the back window is only to warm the hands of the people that are pushing it.
So they pay you to take the car, right?
Yes, yes. Usually you find them still there, full of pumpkins, and they use them as a planter.
Decorations.
Yes.
Highway decorations.
Anyway, thank you. Nice class.
And we can remind ourselves of the example of why your friend bought one of those cars and you're driving a Tesla and I feel sorry for you. I feel really sorry for you. But if you get one of those Chinese cars, whatever they call the BYDs or something, then you'll feel sorry for the people riding Teslas, because those cars are way better than Teslas and way cheaper.
Wow, didn't know.
Yeah, the Chinese are amazing. Okay, who's next?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, thank you so much, and thank you, Srimad Prabhu, as always. There was this message in the chat room from Sadri. Prabhuji, you said she's from Sweden or Switzerland?
Sweden.
Oh, Sweden, okay. So she said in the course of your preaching, she just distributed 4 of Srila Prabhupada's books. So
I was listening to class and distributing books at the same time.
That's amazing.
It is.
Does anyone have a question, comments to share, to ask? There is this question, Prabhuji, I have, and that is, some people shoot before they aim, but it is expected that we aim before we shoot. So in the purport to the text 7 of 3:9. Srimad Bhagavatam we discussed. And the purport, Srila Prabhupada was saying that part of the reason the materially conditioned souls are suffering in this material world is due to the influence of the devas, the demigods, because they've performed sinful activities and they have to be punished. Now, my question is, if they have to be punished, sometimes it may be targeted to that particular individual, but oftentimes these demigods, in the course of causing the deserved punishment to the conditioned souls due to what they have performed, the sinful activities they've performed, they create menace to the entire population, like in the form of tornadoes.
Yeah.
There are many people living in that tornado region who probably did not deserve to be punished as such, but they do get
Exactly.
punished. So my question is, they are the demigods. Why do they shoot before they aim? That is my question.
Well, this is an interesting question. If you're looking at it from a black-white perspective, then you would say whatever happens to everyone is a karmic reaction to something they did in the past. If you're looking at it from a different perspective, you can say that karma is contagious. So if you're my son and you do something wrong, at least up to a certain age, I get your karma. If you're my disciple, you do something wrong, I get your karma. So that's not something I did wrong in the past. Well, like Prabhupada said, yeah, my sinful reaction is I accepted too many unqualified disciples. So that, so we did that in the past, but in terms of the foundational understandings of karma, that's a different position. So Ramchandra Puri, he committed an offense to Nityananda Prabhu, and everyone in the village suffered because of his offense. So it seems like there's a contagious karma, or a mass karma. For the sin of one, others will suffer. When Prabhupada came to America in the 60s, he complained about people complained about the Vietnam War, and Prabhupada said, well, your president got you into the war and you voted for him, so it's your karma. And they would say something like, well, I didn't vote for him. And I don't know, I don't remember exactly what Prabhupada said. Maybe someone remembers, but it's kind of like, well, you're living in this country. You want to live in this country. That's the democratic system. You don't vote for him, but your fellow citizens vote for him, and then you've bought into that system, so you suffer. And then Prabhupada talks about innocent people suffering when there's bad leaders. Have you read that in the Bhagavatam? Like in Vena, the situation with Vena. Everybody was suffering, and the Brahmins never said, well, just everyone's karma, no problem. They said, kill this guy. He's causing suffering. Preacher Maharaj chastising the earth. You're not feeding people. So now everybody's starving. Was it everyone's karma to starve? No, it was Bhumi had made a mistake. She didn't want to feed because they were non-devotees. I don't want to feed them. Why should I feed them? Let them die. Preacher Maharaj is his duty to maintain the citizens. No, you must feed them. So because he's a good king, people are happy. Ramchandra, everybody's happy. Donald Trump, not everybody's happy. A lot of people are very not happy. A lot of people are very, very angry. And some people are very, very happy. So, and people who have a lot of savings and investments are not too happy right now because the stock market's going down. So I don't think it's that we should see karma in a black and white way because there are other influences, it seems, from these stories and the things Prabhupada said. Like, Prabhupada said you get, the president gets, or prime minister gets 1/6 of the karma. Like, how does that work? That wasn't his karma, but he's taking responsibilities, getting the karma. So there is transference of karma, that's for sure. And also science has studied that how if you're with somebody, your brain will change to be like their brain. So be careful who you're with. It's interesting, if you look at that, because if you get people together who think a certain way and they're bouncing off one another, they all have the same brain. And when you hear them talk, you ever hear people talk and they're all saying the same thing and you're listening to it and you're thinking, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. How can they say that? You ever been in a situation like that? You're like, and every single person who represents that, whatever it is they represent, they're basically saying the same things that don't make any sense to you because that's how it works. So if that's true, that's a kind of karma also, you could say, right? By association. So it doesn't mean that I'm not going to get reactions for what I do, but I might get reactions for what another 300 million people in my country do. And you're in Africa, so some of what's gone on there better than I do. And it's like, it seems like millions of innocent people suffered, like Rwanda, was it Rwanda? Yeah, like that, yeah. So, yeah. And, you look at economies of countries and based on decisions leaders make, it changes the whole economy. Now, one day you're rich and next day you have no money. Your money's worth nothing. You need a cartload of money to buy a loaf of bread. Like, what happened? Whose fault was that? Sometimes it's no one's fault. It's just the way the world is.
Well, thank you for this beautiful answer. But there is also this saying, physician, heal thyself.
Yes.
These demigods, as we understand from Srila Prabhupada, when they look down here and find some of us trying to serve the Lord, they also help us. They help us to serve the Lord much better. But the question then I have is, why then is it much more difficult for them to serve the Lord, to go back home? Like in the Bible, it is said by Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That it's easier for those of us in this particular Earth planet because we have so much experience of harsh, bad experiences to try to move towards God than those in the heavenly planets, even though they're still in the material world, but they have so much better facilities for sense gratification.
Okay. It's easy to answer that question. We'll do a little math.
Okay.
Because Prabhupada said it's 10,000 times better. So we'll just multiply. So take the money you have right now, multiply it by 10,000. Take your beauty, multiply it by 10,000. Take your fame and success, multiply it by 10,000. Then everyone on that planet, it's multiplied 10,000. And I think the biggest problem, which could easily answer this question, is take the women and multiply their beauty 10,000. So it's like, I have enough trouble down here. What to speak of 10,000? Like, I don't even know, if they were just twice as beautiful or 3 times, that would be enough to make it pretty difficult. What to speak of 10,000?
What if you're ugly? You're 10,000 uglier, 10,000 times uglier.
Then you'll be fortunate because none of those girls will like you. Yeah, that would be a blessing. But I don't think there's ugly people on the heavenly planets, are there? Because if you go to heavenly planets, you're ugly. It's like, I got cheated, you know. I did all this piety and look at me. Because beauty is piety. Ugliness is impiety, right? So you're going to be beautiful. So not only are you going to be more beautiful than you already are now, you're going to have beautiful, beautiful members of the opposite sex after you. So
I can't think of this king's name, but there was this king who wanted to go to the heavens, and Vishwamitra had to do the sacrifice to help him go to heaven. And the devils kicked him out because he didn't look like them. He looked to them ugly.
You can't have it. Yeah.
Trisanko, yes, thank you. Trisanko.
Well, it's like Prabhupada said, you can't go to the moon because even if you do, you don't have a moon body. So, you know, you're not really in the moon. So, yeah, you have to go through piety. You have to be born there. You can't just jump in. Yeah. So the most beautiful people on this planet would be considered ugly there. There's a situation, or whenever there's a situation where a respected devotee has trouble, which for men it's usually sexual trouble. It's usually the trouble is pride and sex. So when someone has that trouble, it's usually because they're in a powerful position and they have a lot of facility. And so we all see that over and over again, right? And that's just on the earth. And then we look at that and say, this person was such a good devotee and so strong. How could they give in to that? And then you ask yourself, I wonder if I would have given into that if I was in their position. Or I have like all kinds of money. I have all kinds of people serving me, doing whatever I ask. Like, how would I make it? And I was thinking, just today, I have so much appreciation for anyone, devotees, non-devotees, especially devotees who are in powerful positions who are not influenced by that. I say, thank you, that you've never misused your power. It's so Krishna conscious, right? We have devotees who have fallen, but the majority have not. A majority of our leaders have not. And like, thank you. I was listening to a lecture the other day and a question came up, and it's a really interesting answer. The question came up and said, sometimes younger devotees will go on the internet and they'll criticize older devotees. And so the question was, what do you think about that? And the devotee said, well, the problem is those older devotees shouldn't have done those things. Then there wouldn't be anything to criticize. So I thought that was a good answer. He said, you should do it politely and so forth and appropriately. But the real thing is they shouldn't have done that. But when you get in a situation where you're surrounded by opulence, you have power, it's difficult. It's really difficult. And we've seen it. And every time we see it, we're like astonished. How could they do that? There's no place in our brain for that. But he's such a good devotee, and the classes he gave were so amazing, and the kirtans, and he's so intelligent, and he's so disciplined. And the next day, he writes his letter, I'm giving up my renunciation and this and that. We're bewildered by it. But really the answer is, that's how difficult it is to maintain sobriety. And my realization is that unless you identify yourself as the most humble piece of dust and thereby able to respect and appreciate other devotees, you're in a dangerous position, especially when you are pushed up the totem pole and you are honored and glorified. You could really misuse that because you start believing, what they say is true. We're actually supposed to think, they're all great devotees. They have transcendental vision. They're seeing me this way. This is why I need to see everybody like they're seeing me, because they're seeing good in me that doesn't exist. And I appreciate them so much. That's how we're safe. But other than that, if it goes to our head and we start believing it, then good luck. I mean, just imagine, let's all of us imagine. Today, you win the lottery and there's $10 million in your bank account. Like, what are you going to do? I'll check my rounds tomorrow, Prabhu. I'm going shopping. You know,
I'll quit my job.
quit your job and buy a Tesla truck and go shopping for a new mansion, and you know what I mean, right? You got $10 million, like a mansion. How much does that cost? 1 million in your country, maybe less, maybe
Less.
Yeah, yeah. So a mansion, a Tesla, throw in a sports car. What the heck? I'll buy a $3,000 guitar. What the heck is only 3,000? It's like isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll buy a $10,000 camera. We can make a movie, and a $4,000 microphone. Like what? It's just a few thousand. So, isn't it a fact? If you had that much money, your mind would just be like, I get this, want this. So look what's inside of us. And when you get in that position, look what comes out. There's a place in America called Death Valley. And it's called Death Valley because nothing grows there, and nothing grows there because it never rains. And wow, I don't know if you've heard this story before. It's really interesting. They had rain there, like tons of rain one year, and all these things started growing because the seeds were there, but they could never grow because there was no rain. So, Prabhuji's, do you have seeds? And if you get in a situation where you could, water those seeds, all I can say to you is nice knowing you and good luck, and I hope you make it better in your next life. Because, Hare Krishna. Isn't that interesting? Nothing grows until it rains.
Yeah.
So, you see this devotee and he's so renounced and detached. Yeah, because he's got nothing. And if he has a chance to get something, if it rains on him, then all of a sudden he changes and everyone's like bewildered. How did that happen?
Yeah.
So be careful.
It's interesting.
It
Krishna
is.
Prabhu, did you have something to ask? I saw your hand up earlier.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, humble obeisances.
Okay.
Haribol.
My question is not on the class. My question is, I need your opinion
Okay.
on the Bangalore court judgments.
Oh, yeah.
My question is, both sides, both ISKCON and the Bangalore authorities, why didn't any of them practice detachment and renunciation we preach about for 25 years? How much money has been wasted in the court case?
Oh, yeah.
And what is the spiritual consequences for wasting Srila Prabhupada Lakshmi for 25 years?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I can't say the consequences, but my first thought was, just whenever that court case comes up, I think everyone's thought is, this is not what Prabhupada wants us to do. And it's like Maya stealing our money, and lots of it. And there are many opinions about how we should have proceeded and how to proceed. And, but that's the thing that I thought as a young devotee when I read Prabhupada's books and he said, the Gaudiya Math is fighting in court. I think all of us thought, well, that's horrible. How could they do that? That's, we would never do that. Yeah. Never say never. So I think what it shows us is that never underestimate what horrible things could happen in our movement because of whatever events how events affect us. The Ritvik, a lot of devotees say Ritvik was created by ISKCON because gurus fell. And out of frustration, they started feeling like, well, maybe none of them are qualified. Because if none of them fell, and they all were very Krishna conscious, maybe the idea would have never come. That, because that idea didn't come right away. It came later, after seeing the fall of so many devotees. And it's like, okay, maybe Prabhupada didn't want them to be gurus. It doesn't look like they're qualified. So it's really born out of fear that these people could ruin our movement, these gurus, because they're not qualified, and frustration in dealing not only with them falling, but being mistreated by them. And So anyway, I don't know how we're going to go forward. I think they were willing to be part of ISKCON if we would just allow them to do that, but the GBC didn't want them to do that. But obviously, in retrospect, I think it's going to be seen as one of the greatest, one of the great mistakes of ISKCON, fighting this case and spending all this money, not being able to work it out. But you know what it shows to me? Something that we all kind of have to learn the hard way, because when we become devotees, we think devotees are beyond these things, isn't it? Didn't you always think like devotees would never do that? And then gradually over the years, you see devotees doing things you thought they would never do. And it's a reality check that as human beings, our conditioning is such that we can do things even in the name of service, even if we think it's right, that are maybe displeasing to Prabhupada, like spending his money on court cases and offending devotees who disagree with us. And so one devotee made a nice point. He said, the Vaishnavi Guru issue has caused division in ISKCON. And the GBC said, well, if someone wants a Vaishnavi to be their guru, why not let them? And if the leaders in that part of the world don't want it, then they can make that choice. So someone said, well, maybe you just have to let people be Ritviks if they want. And if they don't, they won't. And if both sides can accept that, maybe that's the best we can do. It might be. Now, whether we want that or not, that's another thing. Some people do not want that because it's not our philosophy. Some people do because they want to keep everything under ISKCON. I mean, there's worse things in the world than taking shelter of Prabhupada, right? Because all they're doing is taking shelter of Prabhupada. It's not that we are not. So there's only one difference. They don't take Diksha from a living guru. We do. But everything else, Prabhupada is our guru. He's the basis of our movement. So we're not that far off. We're only like one thing off. But it's a big thing. But I think we all can cry that all that money was wasted. We could have, how many temples could we have built? How many books we could have distributed? Yeah. So, but I can't criticize because I was not involved. Maybe if I was involved, I would have fought it also in court. But it just, I think all our initial gut reaction from a distance is like, oh, all that money from both sides, their side as well. And you know what the judge said? He said, this is not even meant to be determined in court. It's not a legal issue. It's an issue it's an internal issue. It's not a legal issue. And someone said the court just made a decision to get it out of court because it's been in court for 20 years. He just wanted to get it out. So he made a decision. And he said, I should not be making this decision. And anyway, who owns what should not be something for the courts to decide. But unfortunately, that's what happened. Well, and of course, we're going to learn from it something, I hope.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Krishna Prabhu, for this concern. And Sri Mahatma Prabhu, thank you so much. A few days ago, I came across one video of your humble self, Prabhuji. It's one of your wisdom videos wherein you were talking about sometimes we put on tilak, we put on dhoti, and we think we are devotees, so we are beyond whatever goes on in this material world. So I played it here for the devotees to watch and listen, and it's so practical. The mere fact that we are in a spiritual organization, we're trying to become spiritualists, I do not think means that we are beyond how this world runs. And so if there is a situation whereby two opposing people cannot come to a common consensus, that is why the court is established. See, so I am thinking that from Lord Krishna's time till today, we have this parampara line from Lord Krishna, Lord Brahma, all the way to Srila Prabhupada, and then now to present-day gurus. To me, I think that none of them actually, when I say them, I mean the gurus, actually demonstrated the power of the teachings that an ordinary metal can be turned to fire when it is immersed in fire. Because if we look back before Srila Prabhupada, all the gurus were all Nitya Siddhas. Except Srila Prabhupada.
Maybe. I mean, all the main gurus. Maybe
Okay.
not all, because you only see the list of main gurus. But anyway, that's true.
But what I'm trying to say, in effect, is that Srila Prabhupada came and he is making those who have not heard of Krishna, they didn't know anything about Krishna, become devotees. And
Yes.
when you become a devotee, there is a point where we can become gurus. And like you just perfectly described in this Dead Valley, there may be some of these bad habits still embedded somewhere. So if it happens, that shouldn't mean that the system
Right.
has to be collapsed. Srila Prabhupada himself told us that the abuse of a system does not make it useless.
Exactly.
So
Well,
this
that means we should all
concept
leave ISKCON if that's true.
yeah. So I do not think that ISKCON wasted that money in court, even though it appears that way, because at the moment ISKCON is seen as losing the case. But ISKCON had to do that because we could not go in and then start boxing, exchanging blows. We live in a world of in a civil world. That is what I think we need to do. So, I think that it's a lesson that we address situations from the very onset. If we find something that is improper, we try to address it instead of forgetting about it, and then we have to.
It's going to be interesting now, because I want to see what the leaders are going to say now that they've lost it. Like, is there going to be thinking in retrospect? We should have done this, shouldn't have done that, and maybe we need to take a new direction now. It'll be interesting to see that, because obviously everything could have been done better. But I'm looking to see what's going to happen next. It's like, because this is like foundational to the future. If you have a splinter group that's willing to be part, if they can maintain their own theology, be part of ISKCON under the GBC. If they are, that's an if. Some people say they are, maybe some people say they're not. But if they are, we're going to establish a precedent one way or the other, because now we can just say they're not part of us. That's not an ISKCON temple. We want nothing to do with them. Or we could say they want to be part of us. Let's make a space for them. And whatever we do is going to set a precedent for every other splinter group in the future. So it's going to be interesting. It's an interesting time right now.
Yeah. Very well. Thank you so much. Would you do have 1 more minute? I see there is a question in the chat room. It says, okay. Accept my humble obeisances unto your lotus feet. All right. At what point can we single out karma from someone's complications? Because I understand that there is a hell meant for those who punished faultless people.
Wow. Some people will say, you were punished for what you didn't do, but that was just your bad karma, and so it's coming back. So you're having this trouble now. Some people will say that. But the word, it's such an interesting discussion, because what does the word justice mean if everything is karmic? Like I cannot punish a faultless person, that there's no justice in the world. And the punishment of faultless people, Prabhupada does talk about it. He uses the word innocent. So, I mean, it's such a difficult subject to discuss, because it's not black and white. But the nature of this world is there's so much injustice in it. So just by existing, the karma of taking birth, even if it's not your karma, is that you're living in an unjust world, and you're going to be, some bullets are going to fly by you and they might hit you. What if you lived in Venezuela? Like, you have no money now. You can't even, in Venezuela, they don't make enough money to even feed themselves. I don't know how they're living. They're going into debt or whatever. So, and if you live in America, you can live quite a nice life just getting a normal job somewhere, or go to college for a couple of years, get training, you could be some kind of technician, X-ray technician or something. And if your wife and your husband, the wife and husband are both, just like jobs like that, you can live quite nicely. Where in Venezuela, you can't even buy your groceries. So it does seem like there's some kind of collective karma that just by being Venezuela, you have to suffer. But for me, the lesson is you would never punish someone and say it's your karma if they, if they're faultless, for sure. And you would pacify someone who was unjustly treated, but not by saying, well, it's your karma, Prabhu. Probably you deserve worse. You're lucky, you only got 3 bullets. You probably should have got 300. We wouldn't say that. We would say, we would sympathize and say, it's an unjust world we live in, and we never know what's going to happen. And they would say, yeah, that's true. We can all accept that, right? So there is that's the way I look at it personally. There is a karma for taking birth on this planet, that these things could happen. I live in a place where there are hurricanes. Hurricanes. So, I don't live close to the hot spots, but if you live in certain places, you could lose your house. Of course, you made the decision to live there, so that's the chance you take. So now AI is coming to take away your job. You didn't know that when you were in college, right? University, studying to be a this or that. So, and who's letting AI loose? No, you can't control it. It's maybe they're going to try to control it, but who knows what's going to happen. So it's an unjust world, and we took birth here, so who knows what unjust things could happen. You ever do something stupid and hurt yourself? You didn't. I once was not looking where I was going. There's a pothole in the street, and I walked off the sidewalk in a pothole, and I sprained my ankle. My wife was like, "That was stupid." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I should have watched where I was going." So did I kick someone in my last life, and now I have to get my ankle broken, sprained, who knows? But we do know sometimes we do stupid things and we suffer. And we do smart things and we benefit, but not always. And other people do cause our suffering, and sometimes it is karmic, because we cause their suffering in another life. And but one thing that we saw with Prabhupada, whenever there was antagonism towards him personally, he accepted it as some kind of karma or something. So I personally feel, and I think this is a good way to think, the fact that I chose to take birth again and again and again makes me very vulnerable and liable to suffering. And so how can I complain? You walk into a store and it's They got the air conditioning on because it's so hot outside and you're in the store freezing. Well, stop complaining. Just get out of the store. Why do they keep this store so cold? What's wrong with them? They don't have a brain, you know. They should put me in charge of this store. I'd show them what to do. Why don't you just get out of the store? You won't be so cold. So, I mean, that is a reality which we all have to contend with. But it's nice. There is the idea of a faultless person suffering. I think it's an important thing and to distinguish. Okay, we got to go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna to everyone.
Devotees, I believe strongly that we all have been very, very much nourished spiritually today. And it's the first day of the busy week, Monday. And this spiritual nourishment is sufficient enough to at least take us through this 1 week. Certainly much more further than that. So at this point, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute your mics, and we all gratefully chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our dearest speaker, His Grace Mahatma Prabhu. Jai, please.
Oh, Premanand.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare,
Thank you all, you ecstatic devotees. Hare Krishna.